everybody. Welcome to inPsight Radio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. How are you today? I hope you are having the most excellent week. For those that celebrate Easter, it came and went, and it was a wonderful holiday with family. Of course, if you're Italian, that means you go and you eat a lot of food, which is exactly what we did. So that was a ton of fun. And here we're rolling on. You know, we passed that full moon in Libra at 29 degrees on April 19th. That was a big deal. That was a huge moon energy. So you might be sitting here going, okay, what am I going to do with myself? What am I going to do with my life? That Libra energy brings us balance forward. It asks us to really look into every single crevice and detail of our life, see where it's going, see if we like where it's going, and, you know, just basically get groovy with it, man, and create forward movement. So if you've been feeling the last week here in April, if you've been feeling like, wow, this is weird. I thought I knew what I was doing. Now I'm not sure what I'm doing. Now is what I'm doing okay? I mean, if you're feeling all of these complex things, that's okay, because this is a huge time frame of positive transition. And as we talked about, you know, the angelic realm, talking about this time frame as the great purge, you know, what is it and what does it mean? I mean, that's huge. So here we are in this time frame of renewals. And that's what that big full moon in Libra meant at the end of April was, what is the renewal that you are making for your life at this time? Now, granted, I am no astrologer, obviously, yet I get to have a lot of fun translating these angelic energies. So today, we're going to dive right into a topic that, again, I've been receiving a lot of email on. And some of you may be into this topic, and others of you might be like, oh man, come on. Can't you do ley lines or something? Why are you doing this? Well, I'll tell you exactly why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I am getting a ton of email on it. And really it's about consciousness. And so what I want to bring into the forefront here is the dreaded Mueller Report. Now, why do I call it the dreaded Mueller Report? I call it the dreaded Mueller Report because people dread hearing about it. If you are a fan of the President of the United States, you think the Mueller Report is a witch hunt. If you are not a fan of the President of the United States, you think that the Mueller Report is being suppressed and that very important information is not getting out to the American people. So we've got quite a massive stretch of perception when it comes to the Mueller Report. And I can't help but think that this is super fascinating because whenever you were in my field, whenever you get something that is so out there, I mean, it's way out there where the perception is so dramatically polarized, you know, you kind of have to start asking yourself, okay, what's going on here that so many people see this exact same thing so differently? And really, this in the Mueller Report, it comes right down to marketing, branding, and whatever team you're rooting for, honestly. And actually, the teams are starting to dissolve. Well, what do I mean by that? You know, categorically, at the beginning of the Trump presidency, of course, it's part of our brands in government. If you're a Democrat, you get behind the Democratic president. If you're a Republican, you get behind the Republican president. Well, obviously, this Republican president is not like any Republican or any president that we've ever had because he's a big business guy. So he's bringing in big business practices to government, which only works on a lobbyist level. It doesn't actually work in functional government. So we've been seeing breakdowns left and right when it comes to business in government and how it just doesn't work. I mean, you know, the same kind of business mergers that are just as oily and gross and mafioso in the back room then become 3 times worse when they are applied to the federal government and to lobbyists and to paying off backroom deals, and it just goes on and on. So what does this have to do with the Mueller Report? Well, now, you know, for a lot of you out there, a lot of you have been following my work before 2016, yet many of you I got to be friends with after 2016 and after the video that I did about the election went viral. And I made so many new friends that way. It was really, I mean, talk about a blessing, just being able to meet so many cool people through that experience. And Well, a lot of those folks that I've met since 2016 have followed other predictions that I've made around different, political stuff. And like right after Trump was elected president, I put out there that Comey was going to be one of the first to go and he was going to be changing his tune. And I mean, all of it down to Steve Bannon, every single thing that's come to pass. Except for the appointing of Donald Trump to the presidency, every single other political vision that I was shown that was going to come to pass has come to pass. Now, this is not to say what a great psychic I am. It's simply to say that once those wheels are in motion, they're just in motion, okay? So why would I bring that all up? Well, I'm bringing it up because I was talking in 2016 and 17 about the time frame that we're in right now, way back then. And people wanted to know, oh my gosh, what went wrong with Hillary Clinton not getting the presidency? Well, she did win the presidency. They just weren't going to allow her to be the president of the United States. She knew too much. You know how much junk Hillary Clinton has on Mitch McConnell? I mean, those two talk about oil and water. I'm sure they're perfectly polite to each other at a barbecue. However, there is so much water under the bridge in our long-standing political figures in our country. And if you want to call them the classic oligarchy, if you want to call them the old guard, if you want to call them the rockin' and rollin' best politicians we've ever had, I mean, whatever your particular flavor is with this topic, the bottom line is that Hillary Clinton knew everybody's dirt because Hillary Clinton is a Scorpio, and if I'm not mistaken, she has a Pisces moon, which meant that she just collected information like a mad dog because one day she was going to use it, and she was going to use it to help the masses. So Hillary Clinton, though a lot of people don't like her, and she's not the flavor for many people. However, Hillary Clinton had quite, if you want to call it a little black book. Now, it's not an actual little black book, but when I look into Hillary Rodham Clinton, I see a woman who had, good God, she had dirt on everybody. And the way that Washington works is you leverage the dirt to get what you need. So she was going to be coming into the presidency with a ton of dirt on some very long-standing members of Congress. And that just wasn't going to fly because a lot of those long-standing members of Congress make a lot of money through lobbyists and stock market and all kinds of other things. So the very, very, very short version of this is that old Hills, she did win the election. She won the popular vote. She won. And just American elections have always been tampered with. There were ballots that went missing when John F. Kennedy was running. And it was actually, the ballots went missing against Kennedy's opponent in Chicago. I mean, we mess with our elections in America. Now, we've never had a situation like this where the election was so messed with and so calculatedly messed with through a foreign power because that foreign power sought to make a lot of money. So, what I think is all fascinating so many years down the road is I specifically left up the Hillary Clinton presidential prediction video on YouTube on purpose. I left it up after she didn't win. I took the comments down because people were making death threats to one another like crazy, and that got a little nuts. And after the election, it got really crazy. So I disabled the comments. However, I left the actual video up because it's talking about the time frame that we're in right now. And right after that all happened, right after the election happened, I put out a lot of predictions about what was going to happen with Mueller, not with Mueller actually specifically, but with people looking into the presidency, looking into this new system that we had that was all structured on backroom, old guard, good old boy business deals. And that's what we're seeing in federal government right now. And this is why everybody's freaking out who doesn't care for that style of governing is that we are looking at the old good old boy back room, a couple of guys smoking a cigar and 3 people make decisions for, 1,500 million employees. That's what we're looking at government right now. And so it gets really awkward when you look back and you realize that we are exactly where we're at. When we turned it over in 2016-17, this is exactly where I saw that we'd be at. So why go through all the rehash? Well, I'm going through the rehash because it's important to point out something out here, and that is that I have not continued to go on and on and on about the oligarchical corruption that we have. I have not continued to make repeat predictions. I made some, around Comey. They came to pass. I made a whole bunch when all this first came out the gate because people were freaking out. They couldn't figure out how this president came to be the president of the United States. And now we know that, yes, good people voted for Donald Trump. A lot of really good people voted for him. Yet he won the presidency through a lot of finagling. He won through finagling. It's not that people didn't vote for him. A lot of good people did. He won through finagling. So the finagling we're now seeing come out in the Mueller report. And that was shown to me in 2017. Again, this isn't about what a giant rock star I am as a predictor. It's about how amazing things are when they are set into motion in a certain way. They just come to pass. It's crazy. So what I think is so fascinating here is that the Mueller report, when it first came out and he was getting ready to release it, if you want to see more predictions that I make, I tend to make them on Twitter. Just because the format is a short format and people can't grandstand and they can't get going and, just go on and on and on. If somebody's going to send a nasty comment, they have to keep it to 240 characters or less or something like that. So it's an easier format just to put out straight predictions without all the drama, because Facebook is oh my God, and YouTube, these are high drama zones, all right? And I don't mind the drama. It's just, I don't mind it. What I mind is that good people who follow my YouTube channel or people who just kind of pop in who follow my Twitter feed get attacked by very violent, crazy people who don't like some of the things that I have to say. And I don't like that when people who are just trying to participate and have a good time are getting attacked by weirdos. Now, I understand I can't control that, gang. I get that. But it still bums me out. So I've just kind of scaled back on the prediction end because I know what's going to happen, for God's sakes. And I basically told everybody what was going to happen back in 2016. So today, when we're looking at the Mueller report, what we're looking at is exactly what we were shown back in 2016 and 17. And that report carries with it a lot of very strong allegations against other people, which is why when we're talking about Barr going through and redacting so much of the report, the reason that Barr did that was because there are a lot of third-party people who are indicated in doing wrong things in the report. Yet the bottom line is that they have not been charged with anything. So in the United States, you can't just slander somebody without charging them with something that goes against the way that we execute justice here. So they redacted a lot of the third-party involvement in the Mueller report. But this goes back to what I was talking about in 2016 and 17, is that this is so much bigger than Donald Trump, you guys. He's just one dude, okay? You may like him, you may not like him. He is just one guy, and he was the guy who was spearheading some of these backroom deals, but actually who was spearheading all these backroom deals was Donald Trump and Russia. So Mueller couldn't find, when I looked through that report and I look at the redacted portions, psychically, of course, obviously is what I'm talking about here. Nobody handed me a non-redacted report. I'm talking psychically through the ethers. What I get a chance to see here is just exactly what I was talking about a couple of months ago on one of these podcasts, which is there are so many people in government, people in business, people whose names that you would recognize, whose names are mentioned in the Mueller report, yet they were not, they weren't subpoenaed for anything. I mean, it's important to remember the Mueller report, its job, just as these angels showed me, good Lord, back in 2016, 17, we would find out how widespread and how deep this corruption ran in the back rooms of Washington. That's what this report is all about. All this report is, gang, is the front part of a dandelion sticking up. Okay. And then as you go to pull the dandelion up, the root system is so huge. It's wrapped around the sewage. It's wrapped around the fence posts. It starts pulling up the entire backyard. That's how big the root system is. And this is what these angels were showing us, because I had people writing to me saying, how could it be possible that the president of the United States is so far above the law that the Republican Party, at least even to save its own butt, is not impeaching this individual whose business practices have gotten so shady that now it's casting disparaging shadows upon the party in which he has chosen to associate. Okay. This was all this email I was getting. And I kept writing people back saying, gang, gang, gang. Donald Trump is just the head of the dandelion. Okay. There is such a vast network of, you want to call it conspiracy, you want to call it corruption. It's huge in Washington, D.C., and I don't think that shocks anybody. Yet it will be very interesting to see as we get further into this report, because you got to remember that Mueller, he interviewed 500 witnesses. He issued more than 2,800 subpoenas, gang, and 500 search warrants. And it took 22 months to get through all of this stuff. Now, I want to tell you something. There's all of this. There is conspiracy out there saying this is a big witch hunt, blah, blah, blah. But let me tell you what. The FBI is actually a very conservative organization, as you could go back in time and see that Comey shooting out about a private, a person at that time who was Hillary Clinton, and shooting out letters to Congress saying, oh, by the way, she's still under investigation, even though she hasn't been charged with anything. One of the reasons that Barr has redacted all of the third-party information here in the Mueller report is because it would have a similar effect as we saw on Hillary Clinton. She wasn't charged with anything. The FBI is a conservative organization. And honestly, Comey way overreached. He learned a big lesson. And I talked about that back in 2016-17, about how he had a massive lesson in hubris coming. And boy, he learned it. And he turned it right around. I got to give him a lot of credit. He owned it and he learned it. So go Comey. Yet the FBI, being a conservative organization, gang, is not going to issue 2,800 subpoenas and 500 search warrants and pay people to be boots on the ground looking into all of that for a witch hunt. Okay? This idea that we're trying to run this president out on a rail is very, very fascinating marketing that actually we got from Russia. And that's what authoritarians do. They claim that somebody's out to get them and you're either for them or against them. And if you bring out the facts, then it's a witch hunt. And I mean, it's fascinating how many plays that this administration has taken directly out of the Kremlin's playbook. I mean, it's hilarious, actually. Like, I can't even be offended by it as an American anymore because it's just ridiculously funny. It's like watching a really bad spy movie where you know the ending because the spies are so terrible. That's what this is like. So the Mueller report, people have been writing to me saying, what's really in it? What's really in it? Well, I'll tell you. And again, I'm not trying to sound sanctimonious or haughty when I talk about the fact that I've been talking about this for years. I'm just reminding everybody, this information, I've had it out there for a while, and it hasn't changed. I mean, we are looking at the same opportunity to gut corruption out of the government as we were when Mr. Trump got elected or appointed or whatever it was that actually happened there. I mean, even Hillary knew what was going on. Her campaign aides, people who were around her. I think they even wrote about this. She might have written about this in her book by now. Even Hillary came out and in her tears said, what was I thinking? They were never going to allow me to be president. I mean, she didn't say get elected. She said they were never going to allow me to be president because she knows how this works. And she had dirt on everybody. And now guess what? So does Mueller. Mueller has dirt on everybody. So instead of them getting Hillary Clinton, who they could have just blocked till the day is long with every congressional playbook they had to choke her out and, all the subterfuge that we're seeing in government. I mean, all of that, they could have thrown it just at Old Hills there. And instead, now they've got an FBI report with it all documented. So it's fascinating to me to watch these energies play out. We can't outrun that which is destined for us. And by destined, I mean, if we have a big lesson coming, gang, through our timelines, we can't outrun that. I don't care who you are. I mean, we're even seeing it right now. The president of the United States you can't charge a sitting president with a crime because, well, then everybody would just charge everybody and get rid of the president they didn't like. I mean, I see that rule being there for a reason. Yet you can impeach them, and once they're a private citizen, you can go the heck after them. So now we have this situation where this report is pointing to so many private people and public people in government. It is pointing to all sorts of people who did not have charges brought against them. So they were redacted because we don't want another situation like Comey and Hillary, where he's just saying, well, this could be a thing, and it ruins people's lives. We don't need to go there in the United States. We already saw how that happens, so we don't need to do it again. Yet the Mueller Report, gang, is doing exactly what it was supposed to. And I talked about this a couple of months ago. It is pointing to the true roots of corruption, and it's going to go after them legally. So it's kind of like that god-awful weed killer called Roundup, and you pour it on your weeds, and it actually goes down, and then the poor little plant drinks it, thinking it's good for it, because the poison tricks the plant into drinking it. And it sucks it right down and puts it right into its roots, and it kills the weed from the root up. I am not a fan of Roundup. I think Monsanto makes it. I think it's brutal and awful. However, that being said, the Mueller Report is the Roundup in consciousness right now. Yet, really, even if you want to look at it, it was even manufactured in somewhat of a toxic way because of the way that the president of the United States took office. And, I'm very careful to say took office. There were people who voted for him. Yet between the missing ballots in the Rust Belt states and all of the mathematicians that came forward saying that there was an exact 2% bump in numbers that came out of the voting machines in Rust Belt states as well as Florida. Oh, Florida, we love you, Florida. You're so colorful in elections. Let me tell you, you color us interestingly, Florida. So, we do appoint presidents, gang, and sometimes they're easier to appoint than other times. Barack Obama came right up so grassroots they could not let him actually get elected because, oh my God, the momentum behind that was incredible. Yet, when we look at the Mueller report, it's doing exactly what it was meant to do, which is address the consciousness that keeps going around in these back rooms silently. Now, whether you're a fan of the president or not, one of the things that we can all be very thankful to Donald J. Trump for is absolutely sticking to his playbook. Because if he would have varied off his playbook in any way whatsoever, we would not have had the Mueller report, and we wouldn't have had Mueller heading it up. Because as you'll remember, look how many special counsels, look how many FBI heads. We've had more people in charge. I've lost count of all the people that have been in charge in this administration. So when I look at this spiritually, we had a group of people trying to pull a fast one by making sure that a woman that had dirt on everybody, including Russia, and she was going to smash Russia with sanctions that would have shut down Russian interests in the American market for the next 10 years because Vladimir Putin wouldn't have quit doing the mean things he's doing to get rid of the sanctions, okay? So instead of dealing with that, they just said, well, that's okay. We're just going to go ahead and make sure this other guy who has a ton of money in our Russian banks, who we're in bed with business-wise, and nobody says you can't do business with Russia. There's no law that says you, as a private individual, can't have Russian business interests. So Donald Trump wasn't breaking any laws doing business with Russia. And then he became the president. And then he kept the business dealings still going. And then we kind of now are finding out that all these people who cannot be named by name in the Mueller report know a heck of a lot about what the heck is going on here. because you cannot have a superpower like Russia. And yes, they are the other superpower. China is going to eclipse both the United States and Russia here in about 5 minutes. However, you can't have a player that big without a large cast, gang. And I know. I'm repeating myself a little. Yet I have been saying this for years. So many people have been involved in this that are still governing right now. I mean, gang, let's look at Mr. McConnell. Mitch McConnell happens to, be a senator from a state who just put the largest aluminum plant on the East Coast into that state. And 40% of that aluminum plant's ownership is a famous Russian oligarch who lives in Russia. Now, there's no way that guy could have opened an aluminum plant in Mitch McConnell's state with sanctions against them. There is no way that Russia, who is, Russia's big export, actually, one thinks it's vodka. That's not actually true, although God bless Russian vodka. It's oil. That's their biggest export. Russia's biggest export is oil. Yet they've got tar sand oil. They've got real mucky, dirty oil. They don't have all the lush, rushing oil that looks like it's on the Beverly Hillbillies, just, bursting up through the ground. So Russia needed Exxon's capability to clean the oil because Exxon has the most advanced tar sand extraction or oil cleaning technology in the world. Okay. So Exxon needed to have sanctions lifted before they could do business with Russia. And, I don't think it's a big fat accident that, the first Secretary of State that came through the administration was Rex Tillerson, who was the CEO of Exxon. I mean, this honestly, it's not even, it doesn't even bear going down the blow by blow, because the whole point of the Trump presidency was to point out where we as America have completely sold off I'm not even going to say our democracy, because we're not a democracy. We're a republic. Hello. And we're going to talk about that for just a second, but we've sold off our republic. And we need to get it back so that we can govern as a republic. And, we like to throw around the word democracy. It's our democracy, a democracy. Well, a democracy, gang, is majority rule, okay? Now, the problem with that is if I decide that I don't like cats and I rally that we all kill cats, then the majority decides that cats are dead and boom, we have no more cats. So, right now we're holding our politicians to this democracy state, which, we do need to hear the voice of the people. Absolutely. Yet we also need to be able, as the people, to trust our politicians or the servants that go into civic, government. We need to trust them that they're going to uphold the republic and the laws of the republic as well. Not just free pizza Friday for me sitting out here. I want my free pizza. I want no taxes, blah. I mean, okay, great, rock on. Yet we need to be able to trust the people that we elect into these positions because they have information that we don't have, gang. They have information on intelligence. They have information on what's going on with China, with the rest of the world that we don't have. So if we want to govern, like a big group of we the people, by the people, for the people, which I think is great, as long as we the people, by the people, for the people are willing to educate ourselves, right? Insert the sound of a needle being ripped off a record right there. As long as we're able to educate ourselves, then government for the people, by the people is functional. The problem is most of us are working 80 hours a week, 70 hours a week, 60, 50. We don't even have time to keep up with what's actually going on in our American government to govern the self. So we shove people up there who actually want these jobs because they run for office. And we say, hey, we're going to trust you to be able to govern for what is best for the whole country, not just my free pizza Fridays, not just for his or her free pizza Fridays, but we need to be able to trust each other to get the republic to adhere to the law. The problem is we don't adhere to the law. And the Mueller Report is going to expose that on so many levels, which is why when I had some friends of mine who are not fans of this administration, they were tweeting me saying, what's going on with this Mueller Report? We're so disgusted that it's, being hidden and this and that. And I kept telling everybody, will you just wait a second? This report has not even begun to do what it's going to do. This is the gift that's going to keep on giving for the next 5 years. And Donald Trump is just one little flower on the whole scope of the yard here. He's only one point of interest in this thing. And Mueller could not find a smoking gun. They couldn't find a taped phone call where Donald Trump was on the phone with Vladimir Putin saying, "Gee, Vlad, thanks so much for helping me out with this fake news. Thanks so much. I really could use, hey, let's do this president thing for a little while." He didn't even really want to be president. Trump didn't. Vladimir Putin wanted Trump to be president, gang. So what we're going to see in this Mueller report as it goes down is that there's so much corruption on so many levels of government that here's your prediction coming forward. What we're going to be watching is the rats are going to be fleeing the ship. We're going to be watching high-ranking people in both franchises of government, Republican and Democrat, flipping on this report saying, yep, we need to handle it. We need to handle it. We had Nancy Pelosi in the Democratic Party, Speaker Pelosi, saying, let's not impeach. I don't think it's good for the country. But, you had all these Democrats mad as a March hare about that. Yet she was smart in doing that. And I looked into, on a psychic level, Nancy Pelosi's reasoning for doing that. Because if you just impeach just to impeach without letting the momentum come forward or the facts come forward in this report, then you look like the party who's full of sour grapes. However, because we are a democracy, we've moved away from being a republic into a democracy. We actually expect our people that we elect into office to do exactly what we want them to do instead of factoring what we'd like them to do with what's going on with the rest of the world. We've decided that we know best from all of our houses and our armchairs. And I say it like that because I have a lot of friends of mine who are public servants, and it's a rotten job. I mean, they don't think it's rotten. They love it. People in state legislature here in Montana. Yet it's a tough job. And they are responsible to leverage the needs of their constituents against the reality of the rest of everything they're dealing with administratively in government. So, it's such an Americanism to decide that we're just going to elect somebody and we're all going to go and vote online and then everything's going to end up the way we want it to be, like an episode of the freaking American Idol, that we forget that there is a rule of law. And that rule of law, if executed properly, takes time. And see, Mueller, being an FBI guy, knew all this. So he layered this report up because he knew Mueller's not stupid, gang. He knew going into this that he was not going to find some smoking gun. Donald Trump is not stupid. And I'll tell you who's even smarter than Trump by a long shot is Vladimir Putin, who is feeding Trump all of this information to begin with. And I mean, literally, and Trump wasn't even the one catching a lot of this information. It was his people who were running his campaign. So it's not like Donald was on the phone with these folks anyway. He was busy being Donald. He was busy being a media personality because that's what he does. Okay. So I understand that there's a lot of people out there who are really angry about the fact that this rule of law process has taken so long. Yet it has to take this long because we have to cross these T's and dot these I's appropriately. Because if we don't, our judicial system throws the whole report out. Are you following me here? So, I mean, literally, what is in that Mueller report is exactly what these angels showed me back in 2016 and 17, is that the vast, corrupt nature, it's not just the presidency, gang. We have so much corruption in the Senate. The Senate itself is 1,000 times worse than the executive branch when it comes to the level of corruption. It is nasty. It's bad. And the House is bad too. It's just that the House, you're changing people every couple of years. The Senate, they hang on for every 4. And we do need term limits, in my opinion, because that would definitely dislodge some of the strongholds that the Senate has. But if you really want to rally for change in America, re-elect different senators. Now, it's not to say that the House doesn't have longstanding people, but again, the House is a bigger body. It does speak for the people. The Senate, if you'll notice, is where everything gets killed or dead stopped, and it's part of its job as one of the balances of government. Yet what we're looking at in the Senate is a lot of people whose names are in the Mueller report and who are currently redacted. Okay? Are you getting what we're laying down here? So when you want to be just freaked out about the Mueller report and, oh my God, why isn't anything happening in our country? And we have people getting away with murder, literally. We have people getting away with extortion. We have people getting away with blackmail. We have a president who is not engaging right now with the rule of law. This all is going to come crashing on down. Because here's the thing. You notice the scurry that the Trump administration has had to appoint justices. Well, duh. You got to get people in there who aren't going to automatically just kick you out and rule you out. You got to have people you can leverage a little bit. Now, what's interesting is that Donald Trump and his cronies, and it wasn't just Trump, gang, believe me, the Senate is just insipid at this point right now. The American Senate is, when I look at the energy of it, it's gross. Like if I could redo an entire body of government. I mean, there's good senators. We have very good senators on both sides of the aisle in the Senate. But I'll tell you, right now it's being controlled. Mitch McConnell he's heading out, meaning, he's heading for retirement. And he is an expert at policy and playing the law and playing the rules against the rules. So he's not the only one. He's just low-hanging fruit to mention in this podcast. However, what I can tell you is that the Mueller report is here to be a slow, acidic burn that just keeps on burning. And, if we did change some key characters in the Senate, then it wouldn't matter that Donald Trump or Donald Duck was president. We would have a more forward-moving government. It's not Trump that's as obstructionist as you'd think, although he's not my personal cup of tea in terms of how he governs. However, when I look at where the energy block is, gang, it's in the Senate. And yeah, Trump throws down and he's a blowhard and he says a bunch of weird stuff and basically acts like a TV personality who became president. That's what you get, is that. So, he's acting just like a big business guy who became president. He's pulling all the strings behind the scenes. He's not answering to anybody. And that's what the Mueller report shows. The Mueller report, as we get farther into this, you all are going to start to see the architecture of corruption. That's what the Mueller report is here for. It's to roll out the red carpet to draw a diagram of the architecture of corruption. Now, did they find the smoking gun that's going to hang Donald Trump up by his toenails because he talked to Vlad Putin about rigging an election? No. You know why? Because Vlad Putin approached Trump about it. So they're not going to find that because it didn't happen. It's like looking for the missing link about, and actually he approached the Trump campaign about it. Vlad is smart enough not to just go right to Donald Trump and say, hey, you want me to help you win an election, dude? I mean, come on, people. These folks playing this game are pros. Okay? So before we as Americans, in our beautifully, God bless us, naivete, before we get so upset that the Mueller report is not just writing people out on a rail, just like on American Idol, we voted you off the island, Survivor, so what are you still doing here? We need to remember, A, that we are a republic technically, not a democracy. We are leaning into the democracy at this point, and the democracy requires a figurehead for the groupthink, and that figurehead then becomes the head oligarch in charge, which is kind of what we've had for the last 50 years, okay? So we're trying to kick back up the rules of the republic as applied to a business magnate who has never played by the rules. So this is what we're seeing. Now, why is this important? Why is the Mueller report so important? And why is it going to be a pivotal part in American history books to come? It's going to be important because it is, you talk about the shot that was heard around the world. When Paul Revere ran around, the British are coming, that shot that was heard around the world, this Mueller report for modern American history is going to be the shot that was heard around the world. And it's just good. It's the gift that's going to keep on giving. And we are going to see levels of corruption in American government that we suspect is there. Yet we didn't actually think it was this bold or this brazen to just operate out in the open like that. And obviously, when you have key players like Michael Cohen, who lied and then he said he wasn't lying and then he testified again and lied. I mean, some people just can't help but lie. For Cohen, he had made a career. When I looked inside of that man, he's not a bad guy. He is literally the frog that has been boiled 1 degree at a time. That's Michael Cohen. And, when he came out and testified and said he did all those things in the name of Trump and can't even believe he did it, he meant all that stuff, and then there was some, again, though, if you're a career liar, it's awfully hard to just tell the truth without coloring it in. And when you work for somebody like Donald Trump, who colors it in all the time, and most business, I'm going to take that back. That's not true. I was going to say most humongous business magnates do color things in. That's not entirely true. And I take that back. I misspoke. You've got people like Richard Branson, who is an amazing business magnate, and he is all about discovery and, doing things on the up and up. And I'm sure if anybody tore into any major organization that is business in the world, you're probably going to find some little wobbly, wiggly spots that maybe aren't the shiniest. Yet when we look at American business, gang, we are just raunchy. We are cutthroat. We are sociopathic in the way that we do business here. So the Mueller report shines a light on the deep-seated dysfunction that has been feeding the money in government for a very long time. And it's important to note, gang, that we have learned so much in the last 2 years about media, about messaging, about truth-telling versus just fact-telling. I mean, because I can tell you my truths all day long. If I believe that the second coming of Christ is tomorrow and we're all going to be snapped up in, whatever, the Jesus' sled of redemption tomorrow, if that's my truth, I can talk about it all I want. It may or may not happen. It may or may not be a fact. But by God, that's my truth, right? So it's important for those of us who work in media, and I do, technically I work in media, and it's important for those of us that work in media and do pass messages along to make sure to define where the messages are coming from. Like I'll say to you, this is a psychic thing. I'm looking at this psychically through the ethers, not, oh, guess what? I got in the dark web and read all about this. That's just called lying to back your point up, and that's gross. So when I bring you this information, I'm getting this information through psychically intuiting, through talking with the angelic realm, through looking through the ethers in the same way I did back in 2016. And fact of the matter is, yeah, Hillary Clinton won, but she didn't get to be the president. So it taught me a lot, actually, about reading through timelines, and especially reading when you've got so much money and power at stake. Because the natural producing energy there of here's how many votes, when you're talking taking money out of the pocket of one of the largest oligarchical superpowers in the world, which is Russia, of course they're going to get involved. Of course they are. So for me, or dozens and dozens of my colleagues who all predicted the same thing I did, when you're reading, well, who wins the election? Well, Hillary does. We probably should have been reading who wins the struggle for money, who wins the power struggle for the oil reserves over the next several years. That would have told us who the president was going to be right there. So I find it fascinating when we report on this stuff to be able to just make sure that if you're somebody reading about this stuff online and you're all upset because maybe you love President Trump, and you are just infuriated because you see the Democrats as coming after this man who's trying to buck the system. Or maybe you're somebody that looks at Trump and you can't even listen to him on the radio because his voice is like fingernails down the chalkboard of your conscience. I mean, whoever you are listening, this is the message of this time frame. that though we are a republic, we the people, we're always going to determine the course of this country. Because we have fallen out of being a republic and into a democracy, now our elected officials do fear the masses, where at one time they really didn't. They didn't. I mean, yes, they were going to speak for their constituency back in the old days, but they were also going to govern according to the law. And now the law has been replaced by popular opinion. So we're learning an extremely valuable lesson in this time frame about what is important. This Mueller report, again, it's the shot that's going to be heard through American history. It's going to change the way that we allow sitting presidents to be or not be held accountable. This is going to change a lot of things, gang. It's going to change a lot of things. So when you want to just look at the system and say nobody's doing anything, it's got to move slowly, but there's a lot being done. Now, consider this. Mueller knew all this. Mueller knew that he went up against Vladimir Putin. The FBI knows a thing or two about Russia, gang. And Mueller was pretty sure that he wasn't going to find some sloppy loose end hanging around. Now, where you're going to find the sloppy loose ends are in America. Because over here, and this is all this psychic information that I'm delivering and lots of messages from the angels today, is that, in America, we're horribly sloppy because somebody does it for us. We have the worst lazy first world problems ever over here in terms of accruing information up till now. And they just released some studies recently that the baby boomers were on Facebook were the fastest, they were the ones passing around the fake news the fastest because the boomers were raised in a time of the Walter Cronkites where the news didn't report on something unless it was worth reporting. So if the headlines came up and the headline and the URL was abc.news.ca, they're like, oh, it's ABC, whereas a millennial might look at that and be like, at that file extension CA going, that's weird. That's coming out of Canada, or that's not even American. What is this? This has nothing to do with ABC or CBS. So, we learned a lot about how gullible we are in America. And again, it's not Russia's fault that people believe that Hillary Clinton was running a porn ring out of a pizza parlor. That's the American public's fault because we had become that gullible. So we've learned how to educate ourselves. We've learned how to get the people involved in a healthy way. Look at poor Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. My God, that poor thing is in the crosshairs constantly, even from the franchise of the Democratic Party, because she's coming in with the voice of the people, and they don't like that. They don't like that. So we've got the Republic, what's left of it, barely any shred of it. We're basically an oligarchy, and we trade off oligarchs every 4 to 8 years. Actually, Barack Obama broke that cycle. He was not a known oligarch. He was an organizer from Chicago. You go, Barack. So, and had he been a Republican, I think that would have been equally cool, if he would have achieved what he would have achieved. I don't care that he was a Democrat. I think what he achieved was really cool. So when we look at the Mueller report, gang, it's important to remember that, yes, Barr, he is angling for the president because that's what he does. That's what all these presidential appointees do. However, the way that this is going to unravel is going to be huge. So if you are someone who is really, really upset that the Mueller report didn't have enough teeth in it, don't be preemptively disappointed. You'll notice that a lot of people who are reading it are now getting on board with the idea of impeachment because they have to impeach in order to take the president out of his seat of the presidency in order to actually try him in a court of law because you can't go after a sitting president. Okay? And that gives us, Pence for a while, who, believe me, is not, Pence isn't my cup of tea per se. Yet when I look into him as a human being, he's got some beliefs that obviously I don't resonate with in any way. However, as a human being, he does not have those big business connections. He is not deeply connected. He is not oligarch material because he just isn't that guy. He doesn't have the money. He doesn't have the connections. And he's kind of just the old school super conservative. So when we talk about a President Pence, yeah, he's a little not my flavor in terms of sociological issues on a million different fronts there. Yet he does not have the teeth that a Donald would in terms of business dealings or pulling those business dealings across or making other people money. Why do I bring that up? Well, because the franchise known as the Republican section of government has been covering up for Donald Trump because he is helping make them a lot of money. And a lot of those people who he's making a lot of money, their names have been redacted in the Mueller report. Are you following what they're laying down? So, really, if you get the sitting president out and you appoint somebody else for 2 years to ride through, who at that point is going to be kind of a lame duck, because if he sides with the impeached guy, then he's got half the country mad at him. And he doesn't really have the same cutthroat acumen, that's why Donald Trump chose Vice President Pence, gang, is that Vice President Pence is not, he's a follower. He's not a leader. And Trump needs to be surrounded by followers. So, this blooming onion known as the Mueller Report is also going to pointing to the Obama administration. Obama knew things were going on with Russia, and they didn't crack down on Russia as hard as they could have because Obama was trying to figure out what to do with other pending issues during his presidency. And yeah, he knew it was coming, and they were trying to crack down on it a little bit, but they had bigger fish to fry as far as he was concerned. Now, I love Obama. Personally, had I been president, I would have been like, we need to probably put everything we've got into this. Except at that point, he was an outgoing president. His administration was trying to deal with hot buttons that were actually happening during his presidency, not what was to potentially come, even though they had the intel on it. And they were addressing it here and there, but it wasn't getting chewed into. So there's a lot of people with this Mueller report who are going to be mad at the Obama administration, So, it's interesting because we got where we got in America with this election, not by one thing happening. As you can tell, I've been talking, channeling nonstop on this broadcast today because there is so much information there, and the thing about the Mueller report is that you're going to see federal and state prosecutors all over the place, all over our nation, okay? They are going to continue to pursue, inquiries and levels of interest all the way down in investigations that grew out of the Mueller probe. And this is just going to keep going and keep going. It's like, remember the first Alien movie? We'd never seen anything like that Alien, had we? That thing was terrifying. And when it was wounded, it bled acid. Remember that in the first Alien? It was freaky, man. And that acid dissolved its way all the way through floors of a spaceship, many, many floors, and threatened the outer hull. It just kept eating away and eating away and eating away and eating away until it lost its teeth. And the Mueller report's going to do the same thing, gang. It's going to eat away and eat away and eat away. So what I would ask us all as Americans, whether you like the government or you hate the government or you don't care about the government, what I would ask us all to do is to do our part in all of this consciousness upraising and come out of that mob mentality. We really do need to come out of the groupthink mentality. It's not going to help this case, okay? We can want a certain outcome. We can root for our team. That's all fair. Yet coming out of the mob mentality and realizing that we've got to lead with a little bit of compassion in this, because if all we want to do is say, burn them all, lock her up, lock him up, whatever, it's just going to take that one figurehead and lock him up. Yet the acid is going to keep burning through all of the floors of the spaceship until it punctures the hull and we are all sucked into space. Okay? So our job through this is to do our best to get out of the pre-programmed groupthink ideals. Listen, I'll be really transparent about my own political leanings. I lean left, obviously. I believe in peace, love, and harmony. Let's hug the world and feed the hungry. And I'm a pastor. I lean left, okay? And I also believe that people should do their part and be accountable and all these other things. And what we're going to learn is that I don't even like to say I lean left. I'm saying that because I believe in transparency, and I'm doing a channeling that involves a person who is not considered a left-leaning person. So I want to make sure that this is not misunderstood as my own tint on this lens. Gang, I don't care if Donald Trump's here or not. He is one dude, and we're going to blink and be moving on. He is a temporary employee of the United States of America. And what he has done is show us where our ugly lives. That's all he did. He didn't make the ugly happen. He, in my opinion, absolutely inflamed the ugly in a way that we have never seen a president, because Donald Trump is not president. He's not president material. He's a CEO. They flap. He's a TV personality. They flap. They flap their jaws. Okay? And when I say I don't care if he's president, what I mean by that is I get an opportunity. I care how he behaves in the presidency. I care how every president behaves in the presidency. What I care about here is the lesson that we take away from this unbelievably difficult time in our country. And if we refuse to take the lesson away that rule of law matters, that time it takes to accrue proper anything, proper administration, proper evidence, it matters. If we get into the same on the left, okay, I'll just speak for the left. If we get into the same, mob mentality that we got so angry about, I'm using the we here as an example, when Trump came up and all of these people came screaming out of the woodwork and there were marching white supremacists and anti-Semitic grotesqueness all over the place in these mass mobs. Well, if we just become the mob wanting Trump's head on a stick, we are no different than those folks that we claim are immoral. Okay? So let's not put on the immoral robe in judgment. We do not need to propagate the groupthink anymore because that's not going to support the Mueller report. The Mueller report is going to suss out people on both sides of the aisle, and they're going to go right down to the bedrock of what they were doing and why. And we need to be able to support those findings, okay? Not just get mad because the one guy who's the dandelion, whose root system, he's only one little spriggy plant on top of a massive root system. So the Mueller report is exactly as these angels had presented. And again, I had not made a prediction about a Mueller report specifically in 2016. What was shown to me and what I did put out there publicly was that we would get to the absolute bottom of every single thing, and it would change everything from that point forward. And it's going to. It's just not going to do it overnight. Okay? And it's important that we lead with compassion, because let me tell you something. That guy named Donald Trump that so many people love to hate has been living in a bubble for most of his life. And that bubble is about ready to get popped, although I do see him as a massive flight risk. And he knew. He's not stupid. I mean, he knew that if he was going to put his neck out there and be the lead oligarch in America, that chances are he'd get overthrown by more money or somebody who didn't want him there. And if you don't think that President Trump has an escape plan out of this country to make sure that he and his family are safe after making these millions and millions and billions of dollars that he's made, opening up Russia to Exxon, I mean, are you kidding? This guy's made so much money. And so has the folks in the Senate that wanted these sanctions removed from Russia for the same reason, because they all make a ton of money that way. They all got paid off. That is what the Mueller report is about. It's not just one dude doing one thing. It's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things wrong. And until we get to that point to be able to say, okay, well, what am I going to hate everybody in government? Or am I at least going to have a little bit of a compassion coming forward here and saying, all right, you know what? The only person that's going to get damaged from hating everybody, gang, is us. Trump could care less who doesn't like him. Actually, it burns his guts on the inside like acid that burns and burns and burns. But on the outset, he could care less because he's laughing all the way to the bank. you know? Mitch McConnell is actually the person who could care less what people think about him. That guy is the silent but deadly, man. He's the silent but deadly. Not to equivocate Senator McConnell with flatulence. However, he is the silent but deadly. So we're all looking at Donald Trump while he's manipulating these laws over here, and old Vladimir Putin's just laughing, going, wow, I made a lot of money the last 2 years. This was awesome. Man, America's gullible. And here we fight about who's a Democrat and a Republican, or a Democratic socialist, or a blue blood Democrat. I mean, the left can just eat itself alive all on its own without anybody's help. And the right's sitting over there going, wow, we don't need to do anything. We just let you guys go and you guys will kill each other or whatever. I mean, the Mueller report is an analogy for consciousness. One person isn't the issue. And that's what I said in 2016. In that presidential prediction video, I said, we the people will be what come together in this time frame, no matter who wins this election, in order to come forward to forge a new nation in the new world. And that's exactly where we're at right now. So that's what's going on with the Mueller report. It's highly likely that impeachment proceedings are going to proceed against the president of the United States. Don't freak out if there's a President Pence, That's somebody who's going to be in, and he would not even be a front runner. I mean, good Lord. I look at President Pence who would get in as a default. And don't panic too much about people who've been appointed to the Supreme Court in spite of their personal histories. I can guarantee you that those folks are going to cover their butts, not the president's butt. The people on the Supreme Court who are now the justices that were appointed through great controversy, whose butt do you think they're going to cover? Theirs, okay, when it comes right down to it. So we are going to see what the Mueller report is about. We are going to continue to make arrests on both sides of the aisle. So everybody brace up. You can't claim witch hunt and then claim, oh, that's okay. Or you can't claim, well, it's okay that they arrested that person and not this other person. The report is going to suss out an old world consciousness that will no longer work on a planet with nearly 8 billion people on it. We've got to work together, not covertly behind one another, not in closed door rooms, not like an old CEO with a big old stogie sticking out of your mouth. We must come in compassion to one another. And I know a lot of people don't like to have compassion for people they don't like. Yet, man, I'll tell you, when I look inside Donald Trump and I see the lack of ability that he will have to skirt what's coming at him, short of just taking his family and running away, which again, I see him as a massive flight risk. That's a scary place for anybody to be. And I know I can feel people listening as I say that going, good, he earned it. Well, he probably did earn it. On some level, his karma has been, wow, this is how it feels to be this betrayed and this freaked out and have everybody hate you this much, because that is his biggest hell. That is Donald Trump's biggest fear. And that's going to come to pass for him. So if we can try not to gloat as somebody plummets into hell because we've learned nothing, and we can have some compassion and learn from that and say, God, I'm really glad that's not me. I don't ever want that to be me. Then the Mueller report will have fulfilled its role in our evolving consciousness. As we, the people, do not grab our pitchforks and rally in groupthink democracy, but we, the people, rally behind our republic with a democratic way of enacting government. We can do this. We can do this. All righty then, gang. So that's what's in the Mueller report. Hang in there. Everybody, please do join me and my wife, Rebecca Douglas, on Monday nights. You can catch us on a radio show called Tequila and Tourmaline. She gets to be Tourmaline. I'm Tequila. And we simulcast that on Facebook Live. You can call in. There's a live call-in number, gang. So we actually cover mind, body, spirit topics. So make sure that you kind of pop in and take a listen and see if you want to call in and ask questions. Rebecca is a health and fitness professional. She's also an intuitive. Of course, I do my channeling and do what I do. And we get a chance to cover living everyday life to the fullest potential that you can. That's tequila and tourmaline. It's on Monday nights, 7 o'clock Mountain Time. That's 6 o'clock Pacific Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. You can catch us live on the Tequila and Tourmaline Facebook page. And until then, gang, let's just breathe a sigh of relief. Let's come together in a place of working together as Americans. Let's start to trust one another again. Let's start to trust rule of law again. And let us step up to do the right thing, not out of a gloat and not out of the need to oppress those who have oppressed us, yet out of the need to restore balance and dignity. And in that, well, our new world has a chance to come in and be phenomenal. Phenomenal. All right, everybody, take care, and I will see you next week.